Welcome, everyone. The Clover School District Board of Trustees welcomes you to today's monthly business meeting. CSD Board meets formally twice a month, the second and fourth Mondays, one work session, one board meeting. Business meeting format is as follows. The board will follow its approved agenda. During the public forum, attendees electing to speak will have 3 minutes. The board chair will address all speakers to provide the rules for public forum. Following public forum, the meeting will continue with the remaining presentations on the agenda. Following each presentation, the board will have the opportunity to ask questions before moving on to the next. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, as we embark on the discussions and decisions of this board meeting, we humbly ask for your guidance. Grant us the insight to see beyond the surface, discernment to understand the implications of our choices, and courage to make the decisions that honor you and serve our district well. May your wisdom illuminate our path and your grace sustain us in our endeavors as we commit this meeting to your care. Amen.
Amen. Without objection, the board will approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Without objection, the board will approve the minutes from the last meeting. Hearing none, minutes are approved. Without objection, the board will approve the staff personnel as presented in executive session. Hearing none, personnel is approved. And without objection, the board will approve the superintendent's contract renewal. Hearing none, superintendent's contracts approved.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members of the board, Mr. Chair. And I want to say a very special welcome to members of our public who are here tonight in person. We greatly appreciate your participation at our meeting tonight. We also want to welcome numerous families, I've been told, across our district who are joining in via our YouTube channel. Also a special welcome to our Roaring Eagle staff. I see you sitting out there. Thank you for being here to cover this tonight.
For public forum, Ms. Cody, will you please read the public forum? And while she's reading, would Jai Hadby come forward? Did I say that right? Maybe not. Is it you? Come on.
G.
Headley.
For public forum, any individual desiring to speak must sign in and give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, that he or she represents. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Groups making a presentation should choose one spokesman to address the board. It is not necessary for others to repeat the same ideas, but they may add something if that is pertinent. Speakers may only address school operations and programs during public forum. The board will not hear personal complaints about school personnel or persons connected with a school system in public session. Persons appearing before the board are reminded as a point of information that board members are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. Thus, questions may be directed to members, but answers must be deferred depending consideration by the board. The board will receive public forum presentations as items of interest and will take no formal action on these matters, nor will it participate in a debate concerning these matters. Board members may ask questions or respond to matters for the purpose of clarification.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm more happy to be here. I think I signed it wrong. I thought it's to check in. Sorry about it.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah, we're living in the border and just come here to see which the new assignment will be. But she's
Perfect.
happy. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Quinn, superintendent's report.
Okay, so we've been waiting this night for quite some time. We've been working for quite some time on this night, and so I've got a statement I'd like to read, and then we're going to really jump right into tonight's work. We embark upon a historical moment for our school district this evening, and while we know there is a sense of excitement and anticipation about what the future holds, we also recognize that there are some feelings of worry and angst about changes that new school zones will bring. Let me acknowledge first that change is never easy, especially when the change involves opening 3 new schools. For a district our size, that presents the need to examine every school attendance boundary. While we tried to make the most common sense decisions about where the lines should be placed, we know that for some families, these new lines will result in a change for the next school year. Now, there are several things that we were trying to accomplish with these new attendance zones. First, we wanted to keep the new school zones viable enough to be able to offer all of the same programs that we currently offer in every school. We also, second, wanted to create space in our school for future growth and the expansion of new programs. Third, we wanted to ensure our students and staff have adequate, beautiful, and uncrowded learning spaces. And finally, number four, we wanted to set our district up for success for many years to come. Now, one word of caution as we delve into the proposed enrollments for each of the new school zones. We are still actively enrolling and withdrawing students in Power School this school year. History has taught us that our numbers shift between the opening of the school year and Labor Day. We will be using active numbers tonight and throughout this process. So as you see our tables updated, you may see the numbers change over the course of the next month. Please do not be alarmed by those changes. That is perfectly normal. I want to take a moment and level set about our district before we begin tonight. Clover School District is in the top 3 districts in the state for ELA, English Language Arts, achievement in grades 3 through 8 based on last year's SC Ready. We're in the top 2 districts in math achievement in the state for grades 3 through 8 on last year's SC Ready. Clover High School was an excellent rated high school with a 95.1% graduation rate, an 85% college and career ready rate, a 95.1% advanced placement rate, and 307 career completers over 22 technical programs where students earned 2,312 industry certifications. These results don't happen accidentally. They happen because we have phenomenal students and the best staff in South Carolina in a public school system. And that will remain true no matter where your child is zoned to attend school next year. The staff who had these results this year are currently working in our schools, and they will be working in our new schools. As we move students, we will move staff. We also have strong principals and assistant principals in every building who will be ready to meet your family and acclimate your child to a new building if that's the case. We know you're going to have questions. We know you're going to have concerns, but we want you to know that we will be ready to assist you with those questions over the next month. A special thanks to our staff who have worked very hard on these lines. I would also like to ask now Dr. Hopkins, our Chief Operations Officer, as well as Matt Hoffman, our Executive Director of Instructional Technology, and Ross Hunter, our Executive Director of Transportation, to come forward to assist in tonight's presentation. Once they are done, and board members, you've had every opportunity to ask questions of them, we will conclude by inviting Ms. Stephanie Knott forward to remind our families of all of the input opportunities that you're going to have over the coming month. So I will turn it over now to Dr. Hopkins and his team. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Quinn and the school board and our guests tonight. I'm going to introduce real quickly Mr. Matt Hoffman, who is our Executive Director of Technology for the Clover School District, and Mr. Ross Hunter, who's our Director of Transportation. These two were integral members of the team. Matt diving in and learning the software, making sure we can accurately depict the lines and the students that live within those lines, and Ross in terms of identifying roads and making sure our bus routes were efficient. The team did extend beyond these two, but these two are going to help me through this presentation tonight and may jump in from time to time. There were some principles that we started with, and we ran these principles by the parent organization that Dr. Quinn meets with, I think bi-monthly throughout the year, last year, and several our student advisory team. And we came up with these rules that we were going to do our best to live by. And I'm going to read these off because I think they're important. Do not split neighborhoods. We didn't want to take a neighborhood and have half of it go to one school and half to the other. We wanted to use major highways and thoroughfares as guiding lines as much as possible. We wanted to attempt to zone feeding, elementary, middle, and high. What that means is that the group of students that you go to elementary and middle with, he would matriculate to high school with. There is one exception to this that we'll get into a little more specifically, but by and large, we met that goal. We want to attempt to keep every school's percent capacity at 80% or lower. What we want to do is balance the schools, not to be equal, but to make sure there's enough capacity left within each school to accommodate growth that would occur in the future. And also, as Dr. Quinn mentioned, to make sure that the schools had enough of a population to be able to offer the same programming and academic standards that we have in our other schools. We did not want to move children more than once. We spent a lot of time thinking not only about this specific change in attendance zone, but we tried to think to the future. What might change if this growth fills out? And we feel very confident that through this next 5-year anticipated growth spurt, that we're going to be able to maintain these lines and probably beyond that, because we feel like we've done a good job of balancing the enrollments of these schools. On its own neighborhoods that connect to a school property to that school. There are several schools that live right next door, almost in the shadow of the building, and we want to make sure those students are able to attend that school that they're close to. And we want to take into consideration all new construction of housing when calculating the rezoning. I'll share with you, and I've shared it before, the county's approved list of residences that are being built within our school district, and that we take into account the number of students that would be generated by household, and that's how we get our growth projections that you will see shortly. I would also like to make 2 other points. The only real standard that we followed, the 2, one is that these are based strictly on geography. No demographics involved, basically on geography and the impact of that group of students on the population of the school that they're leaving or going to. So those are the 2 overarching principles that I think is important to share. Let's start off, this is a look at our current elementary boundary lines. You can see our elementary schools spread across the district. You can see a little trend here. They get a little smaller generally as you go to the east rather than the west. I also want to keep in mind, take a look at the bottom right, the yellow. That is the current Bethel zone, okay? And if Matt can take his pointer, jump to the next slide. Right where Bethel is written, right about where the B is where the new schools will be built, the high school and the Liberty Hill Elementary School. So I share that with you to see that it's going right in the middle of a substantial part of the Bethel zone, and you can think about the ripple effect that may have from that point forward, because what we did is we began with Liberty Hill to make sure it was populated appropriately and then worked from there out.
Matt, are you having some technical difficulty for just a minute? Do we need to pause?
I think okay, he's got it now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so there are the existing lines. What's the population breakdown within those lines? If you take a look at these, the blue dots represent 25 or fewer students. The yellow dots between 26 and 75, I believe, 74. And then the red dots are greater than 75. So you can see where the concentration of population is across our district, mostly around the lake area in the northeastern part of the district. There are some pockets of density around the town of Clover. But the south corridor of 274, that Bethel zone, is where we know a substantial amount of growth is going to occur within the next few years. Okay? And that's one of the reasons for this whole effort to begin a few years ago. So let's jump ahead. Again, I mentioned, you see where that school is going. It's got to take over space, so it's going to have a ripple effect across many other attendance zones within the district. And keep in mind, as Dr. Quinn shared, that all of our schools are wonderful schools, and our existing staff in those schools will be the core of our staff in our new schools. So every school is going to change, not necessarily by attendance zone, their staff makeup and their student makeup, okay? I mentioned a few minutes ago, the growth in our area. I've shared this slide before. I'm not sure, can you zoom in on those, Mr. Hoffman? take a look at this map, these are some of the new developments that have already been approved by York County in the Lake Wiley area. And I would like to point out the lower part of that. The Lakeside Glen at the bottom is about 450-ish homes, and then Westport in the purple just to the upper left is 842 homes, and that's just 2 developments. We also know that even though this report is given by the county for current approved, we know that between now and at any time in the future, there's the potential for more developments to be approved in the future. So even though we don't have those numbers, we try to look ahead and anticipate where those might be to make sure we leave the space appropriate for those students to grow. All right, let's take a quick glance at what the first draft of these new lines look like. All right, you can see Liberty Hill has taken over the bottom right, and what we've done on this map is try to identify the main roads. And we will talk more specifically about each individual attendance zone, but I wanted you to get a good look at how these may all fit together in the final analysis. Every elementary school is outlined here, and the changes to those zones are shown. Now, as we go through them individually, we'll get a little more specific. We're going to start on the western side of the district in Bethany. Bethany is the one attendance zone that was not affected. And that's for 2 reasons. It's the farthest west, is the least dense, meaning it has the biggest geographical zone with the fewest people in it. And 2 years ago, we did some rezoning at Bethany. And one of our mantras was to not rezone people more than once. And so we felt like the moves we made 2 years ago set up the future where we are now well. And so we wanted to make Bethany whole. We did a renovation out there a few years ago, so it is expanded and has the potential to accommodate growth that may occur. Not a lot of growth, not a lot of development, but we have noticed an uptick in single homes being built in the Bethany area. So if you've gone to Bethany, or you currently go to Bethany, you will remain at Bethany. As we move a little east into Kynard, on the left, if you can zoom into that, Mr. Hoffman. On the left, even though it's 2 colors, those 2 colors in and of themselves are the current Kynard zone. The dark green and the gray area on top. It goes all the way up 321 to the state line. We did have to make a change. Kynard, believe it or not, was one of our more full schools. And even though there's not a whole lot of growth in that area, there are some homes that will be feeding Kynard. But we needed to get Kynard's enrollment down a little bit, and also, as you'll see, build Griggs up a little bit more. So that area north of Old Carriage Road, up 321, and then to the left over to Colonial, will now go to Griggs Road. Kynard will be giving that section of students to Griggs Road. Now remember, I'll say it once more, if you live on Colonial, you currently attend Bethany, and you will stay there. But in terms of Kynard, no change to that zone except that top portion above Old Carriage Road up 321 through Bowling Green. Let's talk about Larn. On the left is the current Larn zone, the blue in addition to the red. The red areas are the 2 areas of Larn that will be given away to a new school, accepted by a new school attendance line. The top section, which follows Green Pond over to Old Carriage, up above to the state line, we used to call it the witch's tip of the hat because that attendance zone looked like a witch's hat almost. That area down 321 and then north of 55 will be attending Griggs Road. There is a portion in the bottom right of Larn that will be transferred to Bethel, and that road is Lincoln Road, so those south of Lincoln Road between the existing Larn will now go to Griggs. Now we'll take a look at Griggs. On the upper left, and we don't have...
Dr. Hoffman, does it go to Griggs or Bethel down there?
Bottom right goes to Bethel.
Bethel, forgive me, Bethel. That will go to Bethel.
Yeah.
That will go to Bethel. Let me a little caveat here. We weren't able to choose the colors that these maps overlay with. That is chosen by the software, so I apologize that it may be a little bit difficult. But the current Griggs Road zone is the darker portion within the yellow on the top. And you can see Griggs had previously gone all the way to the south part of the district, down across 274, down across 49, down to almost 274. The top area in yellow is the new Griggs zone, so all of Griggs will be on north of 55. There will be no more Griggs attendees that are south of 55. It will incorporate the area from from Kynard up 321, and it will incorporate a small piece from Oak Ridge, which we will get to. So the portion of Griggs that will go to Bethel from the current zone, if you look in the middle slide, that green area currently goes to Griggs Road. That will have to go to Bethel. See, that's a pretty significant group. It's going to change the face in some ways of Griggs and Bethel. Great students in both places, but it will be there will be new schools, essentially. And then there will be the very bottom of Griggs, below 49, that last little peninsula, will be incorporated into Liberty Hill Elementary. So Liberty Hill will be everything underneath to the southeast of 49. Let's talk a little bit about Bethel. Bethel, as I mentioned earlier, with Liberty Hill being dropped essentially right in the middle of its current attendance zone, is certainly impacted, and you can see how Griggs was impacted. The current Bethel zone and the new Bethel zone, Bethel is going to change. That southern part above 49 will now below 49 will now attend Liberty Hill. That to the left of 49 will now be the core of Bethel. There is one area that we had a little bit of angst with that we tried to work out. As I mentioned, we wanted to keep neighborhoods together, and we wanted to make sure each school's population was viable. One little anomaly after looking at the student population within the zones, as you see, we have included the Lake Wiley Road area and every neighborhood off of Lake Wiley Road into the Bethel zone. They currently go to Crowders. And Crowders, with its capacity, could potentially hold them. The problem becomes also Roosevelt Middle School. That student population needs to be big enough to support viable programming for a middle school. So we thought about the geography. We knew the number of students in that area fit that mold, but the geography, we were a little concerned, but we started thinking about, you've got Highway 55, which is a straight shot out of Lake Wiley Road across 5 Points, and it's actually quicker due to lack of traffic to get to Bethel and even to Roosevelt than to go up through Lake Wiley, potentially 274 and 557. So those two caveats to that area made us identify it and bring it to Bethel. To go then to Roosevelt Middle School, and we'll discuss that. The caveat is that those students will then go to Lake Wiley High School from Roosevelt with the Liberty Hill students. So they would go to Bethel, Roosevelt Middle, and then back to Lake Wiley High. Crowders Creek. As you know, it's our biggest school, and it's in probably the most dense area of the district. If you look to the left, the area below 557 and 274, they're going across the bridge. The dark green and the lighter green are the current Crowders Creek zones. If you look to the right, you'll see the section that will be going to Bethel and to, we'll get to Liberty Hill in just a second. But that one section, which are what are those neighborhoods, Mr. Ross, there along that?
Bethel Fields and Kings Grove and all the way down to Hands Mill. All of that is in Liberty Hill. Lake Wiley Road is in Bethel.
Right.
And then everything above that, where the 7-Eleven is, starts Crowders.
So some changes over there, and as I mentioned, that one little area off Lake Wiley Road is the one little breaking the mold right there to make sure we can accommodate Bethel and Roosevelt size, but they will revert back to Lake Wally High School. Let's jump over to Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge is one of our schools that was also densely populated, very close to being at capacity. The flip side is there's still some growth in that area, but not extremely significant. But we tried to be strategic and smart in creating a little space in Oak Ridge with the space that had been created in Crowders and Griggs. So Oak Ridge in the middle is the current attendance zone. The changes would be that those left of Riddle Mill Road, that area from Riddle Mill Road to, it's really just through a field, so it doesn't break any roads. But that portion had gone to Oak Ridge. It will now go to Griggs. In the bottom right section on the lake towards the peninsula there is on the left-hand side before you hit the bridge, Montgomery Road.
Down to the bridge.
Down to the bridge. That will now go to Crowders from Oak Ridge. And what that does is it sets Oak Ridge up to be a little bit less at capacity, to be able to withstand any growth that happens. It also makes sure that Crowders, we take advantage of the largeness of that building, but also leave room for it to be able to grow, because there is still some building out to be done in Paddler's Cove, I think the apartments that are close by. So there's still some growth we know coming to the Crowders Creek area itself. So once again, here's a shot of the new elementary, or the proposed elementary attendance zones. On this map, if you're looking at it at home through board docs, we did try to label, as I said, the major highways and some of the landmarks, especially to the right, eastern side of the district. The QT, the 7-Eleven, the Shell station that sells the good wings there at 55 and 557, just to give you some orientation. Now, I will give a little caveat here. The mapping system that we have here, you can see, is not extremely clear on roads. That's a function of the system and the inability for us to capture a shot and zoom in for more clarity. But we are meeting with York County GIS this week, and they will be transposing this into their system. And hopefully soon after that, we'll be able to get maps that do more clearly show the exact roads within these zones. And we will publish those as soon as we have access to them. In lieu of being able to do that, I think we have run addresses for each of the new zones, all of the attendance, elementary attendance zones. And Ms. Knott, I believe, has posted those. And so we've listed every street number and street name within the new zone that will attend there. So you can look and find your name on that list for the school that you attend.
Not find your name, find your house and
Your
street
home,
number.
excuse me. It's not
Their
your name,
names.
it's just an address, road. And it should be sorted by road names to keep things pretty easily to navigate through.
All right, before we go on to middle school and high school board, do you have questions about these 8 attendance zones, proposed attendance zones for the elementary program?
Want to look at the numbers real quick?
We're going to look at numbers too, but just in terms of the lines, before you see any, just the geography of the lines or the shape of the zones or anything before we look at the numbers.
I've got a quick question. I know we talked about not separating neighborhoods to the best that we could as one of those guiding principles. I believe some of the new neighborhoods, there's one on 49, is it Westport?
Westport,
On both sides of the highway?
correct.
That's going to be divided, I guess, right?
That is the one exception. However, if you look at that, a majority of that development is on the right side of 49 if you're traveling north. The portion on the left side still shares the name Westport, but it's a little bit smaller, and there is a major highway that breaks those two. So in order to make sure that we kept enrollment where we needed to be and followed the other rules, we felt like the break of 49, splitting that, essentially made it 2 neighborhoods. We didn't imagine too many elementary students crossing 49 to go play with their friends.
Let's hope not.
So that is one area that we made an exception to the break.
And it's not going to be a shock because there's no houses in there currently. So when
Correct.
they do go to buy, they'll
Correct.
know, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Westport has had some development inside, but it's all been on the right side of 49 going north versus that side.
Sounds good.
And this may not be the right time for this question, but we had mentioned earlier about having to try to keep the numbers and population the same, to offer the same programs. What about the Montessori program at Griggs Road? Will that, I know those kids, the parents take them for that particular program.
Yeah, it will remain a choice program for now, but I will say this, we do a new 5-year strategic plan next year as a community and as a board, and we'll be talking about what we want to do with Montessori. Do we want to grow it more? But right now, it is a choice program just for ages 3 through 5.
And that's done through a lottery
And it's done
program?
through a lottery, yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it's housed at Griggs, which is centrally located.
Yes,
Dr. Hopkins, may
Yes,
I
ma'am.
ask, some of these, since I had been around for a while, some of these things that are like returning to Bethel were once at Bethel to begin with, and some of these that are going to Griggs were there in previous years. I know Griggs picked up Kingsbury when, I don't know how many years ago, but that was a big angst that the people on Kingsbury said, but we're so close to Griggs. So we're really kind of putting some of these older lines back into place. Is that right?
That was, I really wouldn't know how to comment on that. We made these lines based on the current populations and how they affected. If they match closely with previous lines, that's absolutely by chance.
Okay,
Now, that being said, when did Griggs open? I think it was 90,
I don't know.
2 or 3 probably.
yeah, it was a 92 or 3. So that's been, I don't know how many times it's changed. The one change of attendance zones that I remember being through was when we opened up Clover Middle School in Oak Ridge, and we had to take a new look at the middle school lines.
And the Bethel line.
And then the Bethel line, I think you mentioned that, there was a part which is, I think, the Lake Wally Road area that had bounced around once or twice based on the growth that's occurring in that area, kids going to Bethel. And Bethel's a pretty small school, especially relative to Crowder's Creek and Libertyville and Oak Ridge. So some of those were probably mandated by the population growth in those areas in the past. But as we looked at these new lines, we did not look to the past at all. We strictly did it based on what we felt like the impact would be on the enrollment, the geographics of it that made sense, and then following the principles that we outlined.
And I think it's important to also note, no one who has been moved in the past will be moving now. That's
Right.
been too long.
That was too long ago.
So this is a new
Right.
population of students.
And Dr. Hopkins, I know I recently heard you speak at the county council meeting. Our historic numbers have been the most accurate, correct, for our predictions for the future?
Yes, ma'am. As we have looked at our capacity over the years and looked at several studies that have happened previous to the years, our most recent impact study from 2020, the historical data projected that we would have, I think, 9,044 students in the district in 2025. We had 9,033.
Wow.
And as we look back and compare those data points across the past, we have seen that the historical line has been the most accurate. It's a little below the growth line, but it has been our most accurate. You heard me talk a lot about the numbers and how they impact the schools. We've got a little graph here with some of those numbers. Here again in the population densities within the new zones. But we'll jump ahead to this table, and I'll let Mr. Hoffman walk you through these. He developed it, and I think he'll do a better job of explaining it than me.
Fair enough. Hi, I'm the numbers guy. I'll be talking about numbers for a little bit. Bear with me. So this, at a glance, this graph chart could be complicated looking. So I'm going to walk you through it by the columns, and then we're going to talk about the information in the columns. So you'll see each school, what grades we're talking about. I don't know who's going to enroll in pre-K and kindergarten next year, so we're using today's numbers for today's grades, if we just open the school right now. The first column you see after the grades is the current lines and enrollment taken on 8/13 of 2025. So that was the kids enrolled in Clover School District that are in the new zones, physically there. That doesn't include anybody who lives there, maybe their parent's a teacher and they're accommodated to that teacher's homeschool. This is what we have roped off in that physical zone. So don't consider those numbers extremely accurate. That's what's on the map. Sorry, our current enrollment in those schools, I said that wrong. This next column is everything I just said. those school kids inside of those zones. All right. The next is what that enrollment would be if we calculated for no growth whatsoever, but we took into consideration our Montessori kids, our teacher kids, our what we call accommodations. And that's today's accommodations. The next column, growth projection totals, that's taken off of the growth projections that we've gotten from the county as far as the approved housing, plus the pupil per household calculation that we were given for our growth study.
Our impact fee vendor, Carson Tischler Bice Company,
Yes.
They're able to look at the number, that data is based strictly on the students or the houses within District 2. So they look at the number of students generated per household within our district. It's not an average, a national average, a state average. It's based on what was produced within our district. And that is how we use the average pupils generated per type of household.
So then we kind of put all that together, and I gave you a column enrollment with, all caps, projected growth. So that's with accommodations, with a 5-year out planned projected growth. So that's what these schools could look like in 2030. And then the last column, just for reference, that's the capacity of those buildings. So you'll see they're all below capacity now. For the most part, they're all at 80% or lower. So we have room for growth in all of our schools. Are there questions on that, on those numbers?
No, the one thing, the enrollment, no growth with accommodations, I'm assuming that a lot of that is teachers, and it could be a situation where those teachers move to a different school, and it could
Right, vast majority of.
change. Okay, gotcha.
And that pulls in the students who are outside of our district that are accommodated in as well.
Gotcha.
Are you seeing that the numbers, the projected numbers with growth are similar to our historic numbers, growth numbers in the past with these particular schools?
As I mentioned, the growth numbers are generally, that line, if you graph it out, is a little steeper than the historical growth, not significantly, but that same pattern generally holds true if you look into the future as well.
And speaking of the numbers, I may be going a little bit backwards, but I'm a little slow. I was looking at the numbers for Westport and Lakeside Glen, the two largest subdivisions that we have coming in. That's a total of almost 1,300 homes. Even if they had 50% of that children, that's almost 600 to 700 children that may be coming into Liberty Hill and Oak Ridge Middle. And I know it will be over a period of years.
It wouldn't
but
be Oak Ridge
Is there any concern? That's not Oak Ridge Middle?
That's not Oak Ridge
Okay,
Middle.
I looked at the wrong color, I
Yep,
guess.
yep.
But
No.
still, 1,200 homes in that, is that any concern at all, or are we still thinking that?
We've got that accounted for.
Okay.
If you look at Liberty Hill, the growth projection totals, that 259 represents the number of potential elementary students that could be generated from that number of homes in that. It may sway a little bit, but based on what we have currently in the district, that's how we generate those. There's a different number that's generated for the number of middle school students from that same area, and a slightly different data point for high school students generated within that area. So there are more students than 259 that are coming to our district. That's just 259 elementary, and we'll see the impact of them on middle and high when we get to those
I was
charts.
sure y'all had crunched those numbers. That just seemed like an awful lot of homes in a fairly small part of the district.
And if you remember the map, if the Lake Wiley Road neighborhood were to be zoned down to Liberty Hill, that number of growth kids coming gave us pause. We did not want to move them twice. We wanted to put them in a school where we felt like they could not have to move again. So this zone, the Liberty Hill zone, is the fastest, will potentially be the fastest growing zone that we have.
Okay. Everybody clear as mud on the elementary? This is a little bit more simple. We've got 3 schools that we're dealing with now, so let's talk a little bit about the current, about our middle school attendance zones. What you see on the map right now is our current breakdown of Clover Middle and Oak Ridge Middle. Clover Middle is in the green, and Oak Ridge Middle is to the right. And you can see those lines represent the density within those areas quite well. Let's take a quick look at what we're proposing for Roosevelt Middle. You can see that the Oak Ridge Middle attendance zone looks like it got an awful lot smaller. Once we balance these out, Oak Ridge is still going to be our largest middle school. Still be our largest middle school. Roosevelt and Clover will not be extremely far behind, but it puts both of those schools in a position where they're going to be able to offer a full array of electives, athletics, and academics. When you get below a certain number in any school, really, that becomes challenging to present all those opportunities. So when Dr. Quinn was mentioning viability of a population, that's what we're talking about. And this does it quite well for Oak Ridge. They're still maintaining a higher population than the other middle schools, but it also creates Roosevelt Middle and gets Clover Middle School in a situation where they'll be able to accommodate future growth and in a size commensurate with where we are across the district. Here again, with the new zones proposed where the population densities are. As I mentioned, the pink dots are where more and more people are. Okay, Clover Middle School. So what is Clover Middle School giving to Roosevelt Middle School? The dark green area to the left, in addition to the lighter green area to the right, is the current Clover Middle School zone. So that lighter green area to the right, which is along Lincoln Road up to 55, but it kind of cuts across a little bit right there. 55, then up Old Green Pond Road, and then across Old Carriage to 321. And then north of that area that we talked about earlier that we're giving to Griggs, to the left of 321, that will also go to Roosevelt Middle School. So what this does is it sets up Clover Middle School to be fed by Bethany, Larn, and Kynard. So Bethany, Larn, and Kynard elementary schools would feed to Clover Middle School. Let's take a look at Roosevelt. Excuse me, we'll jump over to Oak Ridge, excuse me. You can see the current Oak Ridge zone is quite large. And as I mentioned, it looks like we've taken more than half of it. But once those numbers shake out, it's still our largest middle school, as I mentioned. And in that lower area, it does create a little bit of better traffic pattern, potentially going down 55 to Roosevelt versus Oak Ridge, and certainly going to make that travel for those down along Vander Lakes in that area of Parham Road, rather than driving all the way to Clover Middle. It's going to help their trip a little bit by not having to go through town and staying on this side. So Roosevelt Middle, as I mentioned, we'll take that portion from Clover Middle School, and then they will take a significant portion of the Liberty Hill area, what was Oak Ridge Elementary, and you can sort of see the breakdown here with Bethany, Kynard, and Larn going to Clover Middle. You can see you can't see it now, but the three schools that will then feed Roosevelt Middle would be Griggs Road, which is above 55, Bethel, which breaches 55 a little bit and then takes that one section, Lake Wiley Road, and then the whole Liberty Hill zone. So Liberty Hill, Griggs, and Bethel would be the feeders for Roosevelt Middle School. Liberty Hill, Bethel, and Griggs Road would feed Roosevelt Middle. And then a little more close look, just back up, Crowder's Creek would then be fed by, Oak Ridge Middle School would be fed by Crowder's Creek and Oak Ridge Elementary.
All right, board, again, these are the lines, this is the geography. Do you have questions about that before we look at the enrollment projections for these schools?
And just a quick edit. The Lake Wiley Road label was somehow floated away a little bit, so it's actually in the yellow. I don't even know if you can see it, but it's on the map for those viewing at home.
I appreciate the clean feeders for whole elementary schools into middle schools and not having to split. So I like how clean that looks. I haven't seen, I haven't seen them, looking at the numbers here. I know we'll see why that works so well, but I think that's great.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult from middle to high because we've got
Yeah.
3 middle schools and 2 high schools. But the geography worked out well when the populations that we built seemed to work out quite well to be able to maintain that clean feeder through elementary into middle school. And for in large part into high school, except for a couple of exceptions. All right, so next slide, mister. I'm going to turn it back over to Matt. Sorry, he's-
All right, so more numbers, more data, here you go. You'll notice in the grade levels, we're talking about 5th, 6th, and 7th grade instead of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, because I wanted to give you next year's numbers. So we're going to assume all of our 5th graders are going to pass all of their tests and go to 6th grade, because that's our goal. So our current lines with current enrollment taken on the same day as elementary schools, that was August 13th. You'll see Clover Middle had 955 students and Oak Ridge Middle had 1173. Once we redrew the lines, took those same grade levels, again, students living inside of those zones, unaccommodated. You see those numbers, 655, 802, and 627 for Roosevelt. Calculating no growth, but with all of our current accommodations, again, those are our teachers and other special programs, including some special ed numbers. That's 682, 813, and 627. Again, we wouldn't have any accommodations to Roosevelt currently because it's not open. Growth projections, again, off that same study, but for the middle school calculation number of pupils per household. And then adding that growth with our accommodations and our new zones, projected growth in enrollment would be 691 at Clover Middle, 899 at Oak Ridge Middle, even though it's still the smallest zone physically, and then Roosevelt at 774. And you can see all their capacities are over 1,000. And that puts us under our 80% mark that we were striving for.
Just to reiterate that once more, that growth projection is based on that current 5-year approval. Keep in mind that that number changes over time. New residential developments will be approved in the future. We don't know what those are, but as you can see, based on the capacity versus the enrollment, we think we've left enough room to accommodate growth, even in the areas that aren't currently going to grow. We know at some point they're going to start going up.
And also a good point to make, Mr. Ballard, your point earlier about should it be 600-ish students for that one area? If you're playing along at home, right now we're at 400 with the elementary and middle school total for growth in that zone.
Okay, now for the high school. We're just going to jump right in because there's no previous to show. The whole district previously went to Clover High School. So we had to cut in Lake Wiley High School. You can see it's not extremely far off, and I had told people during the process, what are the new high school lines going to look like? Well, you could always take a look at what the current Oak Ridge Clover Middle lines, and it was going to be somewhere pretty close to that with the possibility of some changes due to growth, et cetera. So predominantly what we've done is we split off the eastern side of the district along Highway 49 from the south all the way up to 5 Points. It comes out 55 just long enough to be able to stay behind Paddler's Cove and those areas as it goes north, and then it jumps onto Riddle Mill Road and follows that up to the North Carolina line.
Yeah, I think that's Bethel School Road to Riddle Mill, isn't it?
Bethel to Riddle Mill, excuse me.
Turns into Riddleville, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not extremely far off from where the current middle school lines are, but what it does, it certainly allows us the opportunity for Clover High School to continue to grow. It's got a much bigger geographic area, but as I mentioned, the density of the population over there is not quite the same, but we know there is some growth happening versus the Lake Wiley High School. Lots of growth happening there, especially the lower 274 corridor, with some still to be built out on the top. But this allows us to maintain these lines, and we feel like it's pretty fair. If you look where Clover High School is right about where the Shell sign is on 55. And then where the 274 is in the green is roughly about where Lake Wally High School would be.
Can I clarify one point real quick? Yes. So I may have misheard you. I want to make sure it was right for the recording too. Where the line goes across 55 and then up to Brittle Mill Road, that's not Bethel School Road. That's basically some property lines behind Paddler's Cove.
Gotcha.
And so any neighborhoods or basically streets with houses, not really neighborhoods, to the west of that would still feed into Bethel School Road and go to Bethel, or go to,
Bethel
sorry,
School
Clover
Road,
High.
right side
Both-
and left side.
Both sides of Bethel School Road are
Stay
Clover
Clover
High
High
School.
School.
Stay Clover High.
Correct.
Stay at Clover High School.
Gotcha.
So this one's pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of options you can do there. Take a look here at the population densities, the current population. Here again, the pink represent a larger number of students, yellow, blue, et cetera. So we've broken this down into another table. I'm going to turn this one over to Mr. Hoffman to
And this
walk you
table's
through.
a little bit different, but some of the same. So I've given you 2 different years. We start with 2026. Clover High keeping their senior class. What we've done is we've taken our current 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. Clover High's current enrollment is 2801 as of the 13th of August. Students living in the new zone would give us 1624, and that's including the students living in the other zone that are currently 11th grade. Does that make sense?
Because they get to stay.
Because they're staying
as
at Clover
rising
High in
seniors, they get to
2026.
stay.
And that would put Lake Wiley with their 9th, 10th, and 11th only at 1112. With our accommodations for Clover High, that would only be really out-of-district accommodations, but that brings that number to 1659. Our growth projection totals, you'll see the lion's share of that would be at Lake Wiley at 261, and Clover High only at 37. So enrollment with projected growth, and again, that growth is over a 5-year projected period, is 1696 for Clover High and 1373 for Lake Wiley High. And you see their capacities there at 2335 and 2400 respectively.
So it's kind of difficult to look at growth because that's really just the year we open the high school. And there'll be some growth. We'll have some neighborhoods, but we won't have as many that could possibly be.
Correct, that's the maximum
That's
that
the
would happen
maximum.
applied. That would be much smaller.
And some of those accommodated out-of-district students that are at Clover High presumably may be accommodated to Lake Wiley High, but that's to be seen.
Yeah, or presumably could be accommodated to graduation. Like they could maybe graduating this year.
Right.
And so then I gave you 2027, so that we'd look at what they would look like apples for apples with seniors. So that's your current 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders. And you've seen the Clover High number. That would put Clover High at 1313 and Lake Wiley High at 1508. We don't have any accommodations for Lake Wiley High currently, so we couldn't calculate those. So again, that's the same number for Clover High, 1348. Projected growth, those are the same numbers. And then enrollment with projected growth, 1385 versus 1769, their capacities.
Mr. Ruth may mention this when he gets up here, and Dr. Quinn, you may want to speak with this, but I had a lot of questions about the size of the high schools, how this impacts athletics classification, et cetera. And we were able to get Lake Wiley High approved and will be placed in a region with this realignment, and Lake Wiley and Clover High School will both be solidly 4A schools
Well,
for
that'll be
athletics.
determined in spring, but.
Well, unless something happens with the realignment, which is based on those current numbers, but I also understand they might be reclassifying 5A potentially.
No, they're not gonna.
Not this year? Okay. So as things stand right now, we're going to be able to maintain and have a cadre of schools likely within our conference very close by, which will certainly help with travel and competition. Any questions?
Board, any questions?
I know that was a lot of
No.
information, and I'll just share with our audience to make sure you understand we're going to be visiting schools over the next month. We've got 3 public forums aligned in different parts of the district, and we'll be able to go through and share with you any numbers that have changed. Ms. Knott will share with you some opportunities to give input, which will be looked at by the board and by us, and anything that's viable, we certainly give consideration to.
It's not, if you'll come forward and review that information for us. Thank you.
Certainly, good evening. As of this evening, the presentation delivered by Dr. Hopkins and his team has been posted to the reassignment website. Additionally, the images of the 3 grade level maps appear there. And underneath each one of those is the spreadsheet that Dr. Hopkins alluded to. Parents can open those spreadsheets and use either a Control F or a Command F, depending on whether they are on a PC or a Mac, to search for their address. And it will show you the school zone to which your students are assigned based on the new proposed plans. Additionally, on that website, you will find a question and comment form. We will be monitoring that throughout the process and continuing to add to the FAQ section of that website. We are also going to be hosting the 3 community forums that Dr. Hopkins alluded to. The first one is next week on September 4th at Oak Ridge Middle. The second one is at CMS on September 11th. And the final one is on September 16th at the Clover School District Auditorium. All 3 of those are open to the public, and opportunities will exist for folks to ask questions, make comments about the proposed lines. I believe that's an overall summary, but the feedback that's given will be captured throughout the process and shared with the board prior to their making their final decision for attendance lines on September 22nd.
It's not if someone emails our site or our district or calls, how will they be responded to?
Sure. We have staff here at the district office who have that website available to them and who can help you search if you need some support with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, in support of the new lines, we also have several policies up for revision. Some of them have to do with this and some of them don't. We're going to begin first, I believe, with Dr. Dickey with our report card policy.
Good evening, Dr. Quinn, members of the board. I bring tonight for you a first reading of a policy shared in our work session, which is policy IKAB in regard to report cards to make it align with our practice. One change was in the policy was in terms of language, making sure that where it says midterm in one of the statements, it's changed to interim so that interim is all throughout the policy. And the second change has to do with our practice of interim reports, stating that we do not do interim reports for pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and first grade students, but second grade students and up do receive interim reports. And those are the changes to policy IKAB to align with our practice. May I answer any questions for you?
That was pretty easy.
All right, thank you.
That's the easy one. That's the easy button tonight. Thank you.
All right, good evening, Dr. Quinn and members of the board. Based off our feedback from our last meeting, I bring to you tonight some policy recommendations. And so within these, we have the provision that we limit childcare hardships, where we talk about accommodations and some of the numbers that you just saw in the presentation. That's represented again by our community members that may hardship or ask for an accommodation to a school in which they're not zoned while they live in our district. We also have employees that live in our district that will ask for hardships or accommodations to a school in which they work. And we have those that live outside of our district that may ask for hardships or accommodations to the schools in which they work. So the revisions that we're asking for is that we limit the child care hardships for those residents to kindergarten through 5th grade, that hardships that exist around the topic of child care and transportation for grades 6 through 12 be accommodated through our busing system that we have. We've asked to eliminate the physical, psychological, and psychiatric reasons, and I want to go into that with just a little more detail here, is that we have partnerships with Care Solace and with Thrive Family Services and with Catawba Mental Health, so we're able to provide services to every one of our schools for areas such as these. We do still have the provision within policy that allows the designee of the superintendent through extenuating circumstances to evaluate a hardship, but we're asking for the removal of that particular provision because we provide services to every one of our schools for those very reasons. We do ask that we add a provision for students in district programs. We mentioned Montessori and programs such as that they return to their zone school once they exit those programs. And so we did a revision from the last time that you saw this that just talks about district programs in general as opposed to listing those specific programs. We also added language around the acceptance and denial of out-of-district employee hardships. So I did remove on there about the academic portion of it. So we're going to look at feedback, again, based from the feedback from the board, that we have behavioral and attendance as considerations for a denial. So we talked before about, academic. We certainly don't want to deny a student of a hardship from outside of our district for one of our employees because of a certain grade or anything like that. We mentioned it might be if they're not doing their work. That's really a behavioral concern, and we want to separate that from the academic component of it. I also added some wording in there for you as well so that we have some we can look at incident reports, we can look at truancy, we can look at attendance, so it gives some more specificity as opposed to just an overall title of in good standing. So I gave you some more specifics there as well. I added some wording that allows for resident employees to hardship to their place of employment or a school within the feeder pattern of their place of employment. So we have a couple of options. If you're a resident and you're an employee, you can go where you're zoned, or you can hardship or get an accommodation to where you work, or a feeder pattern within where you work. We added wording too for our out-of-district employees for their hardships because it wasn't listed in both the policy and in the rules, so we have both of them there. And then we also addressed, because we have employees that work in the district that might be out of district that don't work in a school building. So we needed something to address that as well, that we would use kind of their main hub of where they report, whether it's IT or whether it's transportation or maintenance. Some of those areas, we connect where that building is to the feeder pattern for them to do a hardship from outside of our district. So those are the considerations for reading for policy recommendations. And I'll entertain any questions at this time.
Any questions on that from the board?
Just when you say feeder pattern, would we determine what that is? I mean, if someone says, I take loops or I go different directions or anything like that.
When we use the term feeder patterns, we're talking about specifically which elementary schools. If you were at a middle school, but you have an elementary age student, you could then hardship to the school that feeds the middle school in which you work. So when we talk about feeder patterns, we're keeping it very clean in that regard.
So if you were at the district office, you would be in the elementary school is zoned here.
That is correct.
The middle school and Clover High School.
That's correct.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, and then last up was staff transfer, because as we said in my opening statements, we will also have significant staff who are moving in this process next year. We're really excited about that opportunity, but we wanted to clarify some language around our policy with that. So Ms. Sauls is going to take us through that.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn. Good evening, members of the board. I bring back to you tonight for your discussion and for your review policy GCK and the associated rule that goes along with that. We don't offer any revisions to the actual policy language. We did, however, recommend some language additions to the rule. And just as a reminder, we propose these changes so that we can ensure that consistency and transparency and fairness regarding voluntary transfers and involuntary transfers or reassignments in the district in light of opening our new schools and staff transferring into different positions. And we offer these 5 criteria for which we'd like to use to help make those determinations if an educator should be reassigned to another school. Again, just as a reminder, these are not in any particular order, nor does the order that they're written in lean anywhere to the importance of any of them over the others. They're not weighted any differently. They're all equally weighted so that we can take a holistic approach and look at the educator to help determine who might be a better fit in that building, and to ensure the strengths of each building are maintained. So with that, what questions do you have?
Any questions up here? I think we're we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Board, you will do second reading for these in the September business meeting, and they will become policy, so thank you. All right, next up, we have Dr. Dickey back. One of the changes in state law is that the board approves all specific textbooks and curriculum materials that we use, and so Dr. Dickey is going to talk about our Spanish textbook assignment.
Good evening again. Currently, our high school uses a textbook from Vista Higher Learning, which is called Español Santillana. And it has come to our attention that the text is discontinued by the publisher, and therefore there is no longer support for that text to our students. As materials become outdated and we need to update, there's no longer support for that. And so we wanted to request your approval for us to move to the text that is supported by Savas Publisher. And in addition to it being actually supported by the publisher, we do feel that it has strong standards alignment to our state standards. It has a robust digital platform, comprehensive teacher support, and it provides print as well as digital materials. So we are asking your approval tonight to switch to that for our Spanish levels 1, 2, and 3. And I'm sure you may ask about the other levels. There is a different textbook already in place for our other levels that is supported by the depository and by the publisher. We did compare to 3 other textbooks before making this selection, which are listed here. So tonight, I am here to answer any questions and to ask for your approval for the switch to the new textbook.
Anybody have, I'm not qualified to ask a question. Y'all can ask a question.
Preguntas?
No.
Okay, all right.
Well done.
Okay, well.
Okay,
I
without,
have a motion.
without objection, the board will approve the new Spanish instructional materials as presented. Hearing none, it's approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back with, on demand is Dr. Hopkins to give his monthly operations report. There are some exciting drone shots in this one, is there not?
This is a lot more fun and a little less dense than the last time I spoke with you a few minutes ago. Just want to give you a quick update. As we're wrapping up the projects at Clover High School, we'll be able to give our full attention to the Cannonball Run site, Lake Wiley High, and Liberty Hill Elementary. I just want to quickly take you through where things stand. Let's start at Roosevelt Middle School, current 9GC, where we have added our fine arts wing, which is the band, percussion room, and chorus room. That project is complete. That building, although we are not occupying it completely, it is being used by the band for overflow lessons, and I think they used it this summer when it got really hot outside. We're working through the remaining punch list items. There's nothing too challenging in that as we work through cleaning up the site. The one thing that we will add as a district, after our visit out there last week, we're going to add some fencing just to ensure there's a barrier between Roosevelt Middle School courtyard and Clover High School. And it'll just be from the corner, be a very short span, which we will add at the appropriate time through our maintenance department. A couple of shots of the interior. This is interior. This is, I believe, the band room. Looking up towards the front of the building, the instructional wall. Looking out the back, that is the rear of the auditorium and Clover High School beyond that you see through the windows of the fine arts room. And as I mentioned, we got a shot of the band in there this summer, getting ready for the season. Hot outside, raining outside. They were able to come in and have a cool space to get some practices in and not lose any ground as they prepared for the season. Have a quick little flyover. What do I hit, John? Whoops. Now, I did speed these up, had John speed these up a little bit, so excuse it if it's a little wavy, but I wanted to get through them relatively quickly. The left there, that's the new fine arts wing. You can see the right of the auditorium.
Dr. Hopkins, will you speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Excuse me. The courtyard that I mentioned, and that to the left is the whole new wing, band, chorus, and percussion room. You can see the courtyard looks wonderful, nice landscaping, grass around the area. This is the bus loading side, handicap entrance, and a full exit for the students to be able to get to the bus pickup line at the back of the building. So we're very excited about that addition for Roosevelt Middle School. And what this does is it brings Roosevelt Middle School on par with Oak Ridge and Clover in terms of facilities and the programs to offer. There are some other things that will happen inside of the building. Don't have pictures to show you, but we're working hard to identify what these are. The branding and upgrades that will need to happen inside of the ninth grade campus and future Roosevelt Middle. 5 years ago, or 6, 7 now maybe, when we opened that as a ninth grade campus, we did a pretty significant renovation. A lot of that still looks wonderful. The building does not need renovation. What it needs is a little bit of Roosevelt color added, a little bit of Roosevelt culture added to it. So we were able to walk through with Dr. Thomas, the future principal there, talk about the paint scheme. You saw a little glimpse of it on the interior there. We will continue that throughout the building. We've met with Chartwells regarding the cafeteria, upgrading the cafeteria, seating, make sure it can accommodate the number of lunches that will be needed. We walked through the gym floor. We'll need to repaint the gym floor, not only in Roosevelt colors, but also a tiger instead of a blue eagle in there, and some wall graphics. We also talked about outdoor signage, the new lettering that will go on the outside, indoor signage, areas of the building, similar to Clover High when Mr. Ruth had the wall murals put up. BSN, it will do that for us. And we also had a discussion about ways to improve the play areas. Now that it's going back to middle school, they're going to spend a little more intense time at recess than ninth graders may. So those are some things that will happen in the inside of the building.
Dr. Hopkins.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we move on from Roosevelt, talking about painting and everything, I know we've talked about Coach Culp's mural that is located in the ninth grade campus. Do you know what the plan is yet? Are we going to duplicate it somewhere else? Are we going to leave it? And it's an eagle, so I mean.
Yeah, that was painted when I was principal there. One of our art students did that when it was Clover Junior High. When we met with our BSN representative, Terrence Biddix, who some of you have met in presentations before, we talked about some options. And what we're going to be able to do is actually take a picture of that, print it in the exact same size, same colors, with the student signature that it is. It will be able to mount to the wall, similar to the way the other banners mount to the wall. It's almost like a car wrap that you heat up and it just sucks up against it. And the plan right now, we haven't gotten specific with placement, but we'd like to put it in the new field house at Clover High School. Because although Mr. Culp taught at Clover Junior High, he did coach soccer and football at the high school for many years. And we certainly want to remember his legacy. And I think it would be a nice opportunity to kind of celebrate him one more time.
Thank you.
Okay, let's jump back over to Liberty Hill. There's a lot going on at Liberty Hill. As I've mentioned, we're still looking at some rock issues right where the stormwater route goes underneath the bus parking lot. Rather than just jump in and start blasting, we're having our engineering firm look at an alternative route, and we're right in the process now of comparing the cost savings or cost expenditure of each of those, and we'll go with whatever's in the best interest of the district. All slabs on grade, which means all slabs that are ground floor slabs onto the floor have been poured. So now all that's left, you'll see the masonry going up, and that happens pretty quickly. Areas A, which is early childhood, B, which is the main office, the cafeteria, the media center, and most of C, which is the kitchen, are close to being dried in. Got a quick picture to show you. That area in red are the early childhood and office. That is just a membrane that will get standing seam metal roof in the red areas. And the area over the multi-purpose room cafeteria that you see with the white top will be the flat roof membrane, as you see. Quick little flyover here. We're actually looking from Cannonball Run up the main entrance to Liberty Hill as we fly up the road. Main parking lot, the front of the building we're looking at. Up above, beyond the tree line to the left, that road exits onto West Liberty Hill Road behind the school, which will be a service entrance and not used daily. The area up here in the upper area, if you can see me here, that is the last part of slab that was poured on grade, so all the flooring's done, as I mentioned. Now the masonry will go up, and that starts going up pretty quickly. Once they get the support masonry up, the steel will go in place. You can see there's still some significant steel. This area that we're looking at here in this other academic wing, these will be our first two-story elementary wings in Clover School District. So we've done some good planning there to accommodate those and placement of the classrooms. The area in between the courtyard will be the play area, will be basketball goals. We're working with Miss O'Brien to make sure that we place in that area what she wants to be there, some outdoor, not only play space, but some outdoor academic space as well. You can see it's a pretty significant size play area that's going to provide a lot of space for the children at Liberty Hill. That area where the truck is going, right through there is where the bus parking lot is, where I mentioned the potential for rock and the redirection of the stormwater zone we're working through. But it's coming together very quickly, looking really good. The company, EdCon, that is building this building has been wonderful to work with. Their scheduling has been such that they've been able to sort of alleviate any of the big delays that may occur with rain, much the way contract has done with the high school, by sort of phasing and rolling that building through. So as trades get through with one area, the next trade is right behind them. They're just sort of rolling through the building. That same philosophy has been applied to Lake Wiley High School, which has changed a lot since my last update to you guys. Curb and gutter and the first layer of asphalt will continue near the building. As the facades are complete, you'll see a picture here. There's some brick facade going up on some of the academic wings. So the steel placement is all but finished. We've got one more wing, which will be the 9th grade area. And so that steel placement should be finished early this coming month. Once we get that done, it's a matter of getting the roofs over and then getting the entire building dried in. And that just means that the weather will no longer be an impact on inside work. Areas A, which are the gyms, area C, the art room, G and H, which are the upper class areas, are already dried in. As a matter of fact, they're hanging sheetrock in areas G and H right now. Casework and cabinetry is looking to be installed sometime, hopefully by early November. So the interior is rolling along in those areas, and as I mentioned, as those trades finish going through the rest of the building, the sheetrock, furniture, et cetera, will follow through. They remain on schedule. We had a meeting with the leadership of contract construction last Wednesday. They remain on schedule. We're looking at a July 1 substantial completion date, which means that that's the time we're gunning for teachers to be able to enter the room. We are going to have some areas of the building that will be dried in and lockable, to which we will deliver some of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment we may need as a storage spot in those first 2 wings that will be cleaned. So we're trying to make sure that we've got a place to put the stuff that we're ordering that keeps it safe, dry, et cetera, and until the time comes that we put it in the building. And I don't think I mentioned this, as we're finishing up the steel, we will have a topping out ceremony, which is the piece of steel that's highest in the building, on September 3rd. The board will be there. There will be a ceremony there on site at Lake Wiley High School to celebrate the topping out of that building with steel. Here is a shot going in. This looks like the main entrance, excuse me. So let me. This is a little longer video, but this is a very expansive campus. As you know, we've had the opportunity to visit with a couple of board members out there. As you're coming up, this will be the main entrance to the building, the main parking lot. To the left will be the main entrance, the higher area with the open steel. The blue area in the middle is the media center offices. Area G is to the right. That's an academic wing, a 3-floor academic wing. You can see that they've got the facade, the brick facade, and the stone going up. There will be metal around the top. Sheetrock is going in those areas. And as they complete that facade on the side is when they'll come in, do a little grading, put in the curb and gutter for the bus drop-off line and the parking lot that exists right there in between those. As we're coming around the back of the school, that will be the site. It will initially be a practice field, but that's the future stadium site for Lake Wiley High School. We're looking at the back of the school. That round portion in the middle is the auditorium. To the right with the deck around it is the cafeteria. Underneath the cafeteria is the athletic space. And then the student parking we're looking at right here, baseball and softball fields above. Tennis complex to the left of the baseball field. That round driveway will sort of be the center of the athletics. This will be a turfed field that will hold the track that we just rode past. The gyms, the new gym, the auxiliary gym, wrestling rooms, And the main student entrance from the parking area is right through that corridor into the main building. The little gap there where the little truck is going is the band area, and this is the band practice field. They've about finished sodding it since this video was taken last week. So sod is going in those areas. There'll be sod following on the baseball fields and practice fields, making sure those are ready for competition availability, hopefully this spring, as those students prepare for their fall seasons at Lake Wally High. Burris, just so you know, the areas are looking much cleaner. Oh, he stepped out. Well, last visit, he was really worried about the amount of water in the building. So I was just going to remind him that those areas were dried in, looking much better and starting to look great. So there's a quick look at Lake Wally High School. Massive building project, but we're very excited about the project and extremely excited about what the finished product will be. Any questions about Lake Wally High School? Okay, I have one order of business for semi-approval. The approval is not a final approval, it's for approval for York County, or excuse me, York Electric Cooperative to move forward with their due diligence. As you remember, I think it's been a month or two ago, I shared with you some information about a proposal from York County Electric Co-op to purchase a 6-acre parcel at or near the rear of Crowders Creek Elementary School for a substation to be able to make sure they can maintain their service levels to that area. The timeline for the substation would be completion in 2029. You can see the map that I've given you there is an overlay of where that substation may lie. And you can see the backside of the Crowders Creek playground area. And when I presented this to you, you'd asked several questions that I followed up on. I want to share that information with you tonight. Wanted to make sure that there was no issues with, electricity or aura or, anything emanating from the substation, and that their designs meet and exceed all NESC standards, which is their code or standards for construction of infrastructure and electrical utilities. They're going to leave a natural buffer around the entirety of the site on the outside of the fence. That buffer would be 35 feet at its narrowest point. The fencing would be a combination of chain link and solid fencing, enough to keep that area, the substation itself, secure from entrance from anyone. And one big question that you asked was about the noise. And I thought the best correlation might be to make with Highway 274, which sits in front of the building, about 45 yards from the main office. The noise generated by a substation is about 60 to 80 dBs at 15 yards. And that level of dBs certainly decreases the farther you get. In contrast, the 4-lane highway is 70 to 80 dBs at 15 meters. I left out the 0, excuse me, that should be 70 to 80. Sometimes it's down low because there may not be any traffic, but it's comparable to the sound generated by the highway. The difference being the highway is about 45 or so yards from the main office. The substation is about 150 yards from the closest corner of the building. So noise should not be a factor. I used York County GIS to determine those distances to make sure that we were within those limits. So based on the information that they've given and the research that I've looked at and the discussions I've had, I feel very confident that any concerns that you have were addressed with these answers, and certainly give you the opportunity to ask any more if you have them right now.
Any questions from the board on this? All right, without objection, the board will approve the request from York Electric Co-op to begin the process and negotiate a sale price between CSD and York Electric.
Correct. And once we are able to do that, what this does is allow them to begin their due diligence to be able to make us an appropriate offer. I will work with them and present that to you, and this will require a second final approval if the decision is made to sell that.
All right, hold on a second. So any objection to that? All right, no, it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and the last report tonight will be Mr. Love with the monthly finance report.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. I have a couple of things to share with you tonight. One of them is our standard finance report showing the revenue thus far for July at 4.9 million and expenditures for July at 2.7. And I would remind you that July is the month that we don't have a main payroll. Our first big payroll was this week, and it was 6.7 million. So things turned around very quickly as far as that goes. And I have the standard printout that I'll just zoom on over because it's hard to read, but it's straight out of our ledger, and we wanted you to be able to see it. So I get down to two things that we need to ask for approval tonight. The first of those is the recommended tax levy of 245.4. Now that's up 15.5 from where we are this year. During a reassessment year that we went through this year, we have to go back through and recalculate what the base should be for all those properties that were reassessed. Now this is the property base that was in the 2020 assessment, does not include new properties. Any new assessments that come in that time frame since between 20 and 25 are left out of the calculation for reassessment. They would be calculated in the next time we have a reassessment. And when the calculation was done, the actual calculation showed that we would have had a base of 228.6 mills, only 1 mill less than we were assessing for this year. So the new base started out with that, and then we have added 16.5 mills as a recommendation for this next year. But the 16.5 is based on the 228.6, not the 229.6 that we're actually at. So if a person looks at it at 245.4, they're only looking up at 15.8 instead of 16 because of the one-time rollback. Now we have available at the beginning of the year under Act 388, 20.9 mills that we were allowed to carry forward from prior years, and we could assess if the board saw fit. This year allotted us 12.6 mills under Act 388 rules that we were allowed under Act 388 rules to assess for a total of 33.5. We're asking for 16.8, which is up a couple mills from the increase that we asked for the current year. And if we're allowed to do that, we would carry over 16.7 mills to be used next year. Now, this is a little bit more than we have asked for in some years past, but we have added some to the budget this year to allow for some of the beginning expenses for the new schools. And this will help offset some of that. And we will have certainly additional expenses for new schools as we open for this next year. So our recommendation and request is that we set the operating levy at 245.4 mills for the operating levy for the current 25-26 year.
Any questions from the board on the recommendation for the operating levy? Hearing none, without objection, the board will approve the operating tax levy for 245.4 mills for the next tax year.
That's right, thank you. And
Hearing none, it's approved. All right, sorry. go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you, sorry. I would remind you that the debt service levy will stay level. We got too many levies in there. At 46 mills as we calculated and promised the board for this year as we had in the current year. That may not happen in the future as both assessment and debt requirements may change as we get through full operation of the buildings.
But Mr. Love, that was the debt millage level that they approved in the bond. And we've
That's
kept
right.
same
That was
bond.
promised in the bond that we have maintained for a couple of years now. The next item is requesting approval for a Cisco lease of $725,000 to be paid over 5 years at about $145,000 a year. It's for new phones and communications equipment.
Mr. Love, did we look at any other options other than Cisco? Are they, I know at some point it's easier to stay with what you got because there's a lot of cost and changeover, but did we look at anything other than Cisco?
This is on state contract.
Okay.
That is, and we are also like Cisco, so it worked out conveniently for both reasons.
Mr. Hoffman, did you have something to add to that?
Just to answer your question a little bit more detailed, we did actually try to go with Comporium. We did look at their system as well. For the timeline we were looking at, it just was not cost effective for us. Cisco was at a better cost, but we were trying to move locally if at all possible.
Thank you, Matt.
I have one more question. Mr. Love, could you give us an update? Have we received all of the money from the state that we were supposed to, or is there still some money held in limbo because of policy change, or has the state sent us everything up to this point that they're supposed to?
As far as I know, we have received all the state monies that were budgeted for us. Now, the state has had a significant profit, if you will, or surplus for this year. We have not received any allocation of that, if any is going to be allocated to the local school districts. But as far as last year's budget, yes, we've received it.
All right, any other questions regarding the Cisco lease? Okay, without objection, the board will approve the Cisco lease for $725,019.04 for phones and communications equipment to be paid over 5 years. Hearing none, it's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have tonight.
And that
Thank you.
concludes the superintendent's report and all other reports for tonight.
All right, thanks everyone for enduring this with us, and need a motion to end the business meeting.
So moved.
And a second? Meeting adjourned.